We're live.
We are live. Welcome, everyone. It's Dr. Irene and
Dr. Dan
Dr. Dan.
Cartalicchio.
Eh.
Cartalicchio.
And so
Eh.
today we wanted to, we believe in bringing the fun, and because fun gets more done, and both of us have had our ICU moments, as I like to call them, or near death moments, and we've agreed that life just isn't worth living if it's not fun. But here's the thing, we choose to bring the fun. So today's topic that we were like, what do we want to talk about? It was like, so how about stress as your kryptonite? Is stress your kryptonite?
So we're going to talk about stress, and stress could be your kryptonite, can work with you, for you, or against you. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that today, on how stress works against you, so that we'll have a little surprise at the end. So that'll be all good. And how does stress, Dr. Irene, how does stress work against people? Just really quick, 10 seconds. How does that happen?
Well, I mean, the important thing to know is that stress is a fact of life. And you could say the only two constants in life are death and taxes, or in this case, stress and taxes. So
Both of them bring stress to people. So
right, right. And and in other words, life is always going to throw curveballs. You've recently had a curveball thrown your way, Dr. Dan, right?
I did, in August of last year, um, it was my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. And so it really didn't seem like it was a big issue. However, she passed away this June.
Mm,
So, it's been very stressful. That stress of losing a parent, you know, an Italian guy losing his mom is just something that you just don't ever want or ever think about. So it's stressful, and it hits you from time to time. And it's something that, you go through your day, and you may always remember her, but then you're busy, you're going through life. Landed in Newark Airport um, on Sunday. I don't know what time it was. Maybe it was about 6 o'clock, 6:30, 6 o'clock. And I went to call my mom. I went to call my mom, and I said to my son, James, let's call grandma and let's tell her about the tournament. Oh, boy, it was like a ton of bricks for the both of us, that we said,
mm.
grandma's no longer here. Mom is no longer here. And it's a very stressful type of a situation. And, wasn't happy. I was moody for the rest of the day into yesterday. Um, but my mom said that she wanted us to smile. So sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. So, stress could be a kryptonite. And in life, we are going to lose loved ones. We're going to lose loved ones. And it could be a parent, a spouse, whatever that is, and we're going to have to deal with it. But it's been very stressful. It's been a very stressful time, losing my mom, and I'm coming out of it with your help. And it gets better, then it goes back, it gets worse. I mean, that's just the way that these things go. So stress could be a kryptonite, could really paralyze you if you're not equipped. I mean, I do remember a friend of mine, a chiropractor. He practiced in Essex County in Belleville, and he had lost his mom. This is going back about 8 years or so, and he couldn't handle it. He just couldn't handle it. He is no longer here with us, my friend Michelangelo. So, you know, Michael, miss you, brother. But
Mm.
mom, definitely miss you. Dad, definitely miss you. But you know, it could be severe kryptonite. So,
Yeah, and it
look,
could sneak up on you, right?
it could sneak up on you. I have a friend, two friends that I've done podcasts with, and one has a magazine, and one is a health coach, and it snuck up on them, the stress, and they got a lot of anxiety, and they disappeared. And I was like, where are you? and they were nowhere to be found. And they both resurfaced just recently. And over the last couple of days, we've been having some contact via texts and so forth. So, um, stress can really do some damage. There's no doubt, right? And it
Absolutely.
doesn't have to be the death of a loved one, right, Dr. Irene?
Yeah, exactly. Like, so there are the big kryptonites, like death of your mom, death of my dad, a little less recently, but still it's there. And but seemingly little things, like my puppy got a an infection on the side of her face, and right now she's visiting with my son, and I'm 5 hours away, and so I couldn't be there, and I'm getting like all these texts and pictures and videos of the poor little thing, like, trying to keep her head up because she was so tired, but she didn't want to put her head down because of the
Mm.
pain, and trying to find a vet in a strange town because I'm traveling.
Not a strange town, a different town, Dr. Irene.
Okay, yes, you're absolutely right. Different town. In other words, her veterinarian is at quite a distance too. So it's been stressful
Hmm.
on not only our puppy, yes, my son, myself, and because it's like, it was that challenge of I'm not there to help.
Hmm.
I was like, do I need to like come there even if it's 6 hours away? Like,
Yeah,
I will. Like, and he's like, no, I'll handle it. But it was heartbreaking
it
for my
is.
little
It
puppy. So yeah,
100% heartbreaking. And,
yeah,
our fur babies, become, very attached to us. And, even when you're talking, I'm sad about my mom, but also my Bernie, my cockapoo, 15 years old. It was just heart wrenching. It was really heart wrenching. He passed away last year at this time. So it's been a rough year with that. And it was definitely very stressful. He had a seizure, and I had come running. My son was screaming bloody. It was blood curling, and I'm like, what happened? I go running downstairs, and Bernie's on the floor and he's just shaking all over the place. Oh my God. I mean, and it was heartbreaking. He can't tell you what's going on. So I'm just holding him, and we took him to the vet, and we've been to the vet several times. James and I, over a couple of month period of time, because you could see that he was slowing down. He's 15 years old, a little bit older. And I looked at the vet, and she looked at me, and she said to me, it really stinks once they start having seizures, because they can't tell us when the next one is, right? So I looked at her, and she said, "It's time," and you're like, "Oh, geez," and it just like a lead balloon, boom, it just hits you. And James was very upset, and the vet was smart, and she said, "Why don't you step outside for a little bit, James? Let me speak to your dad, and let's see what we got going on here," and
mhm,
so forth. So he had stepped out, and it was very traumatic, when you're close. So it's just one of those things. And if you let stress get to you, it could really hurt you a lot, and you don't want that to happen.
mhm.
People are feeling stress right now, Dr. Irene. It's a stressful time.
It is.
People are having financial difficulties right now, and it's not good. And people are very concerned, and that's another major stress. I mean, paying your bills, paying your mortgage, all of these non-negotiables that you just take for advantage, that you just don't even think about. You know what I'm saying? and
Yeah,
and it becomes difficult. You got to put groceries, you got to put food on the table for your family. That charitable organization that you give money to, uh, that suffers too. So there's a lot that suffers when it comes to this type of a situation. So you
Absolutely.
know,
Even those people who aren't, we're lucky enough, fortunate enough not to feel financial strain recently or, over the last couple of years. The fact is that the last couple of years have really truly been like our, one of the biggest stressors any of us or most people in this world have faced in their whole lifetime, right? Like,
mhm,
if you weren't born, you know, before or during the Second World Wars, like you have no idea unless you live in a part of the country, I mean the world that unfortunately has ongoing. And and so everybody just wants to get back to normal. They want to get back to the way things were. And
mhm,
and it can be a stress that, guess what? It's not going to go back to normal. It's not it's or in terms of it's not going to go back to the way it was before. And so it's a stress to find that new normal, right?
mhm,
That new life that you like. That's why we decided to talk about, that stress can be your kryptonite, and how that happens without like going into like a bunch of boring science in that. But really truly it's like when you're in stress mode, you're in survival mode, which means that you can't think straight, can't think logically, you can't think creatively,
bad decisions. You just
bad
make
decisions,
you're moody.
you're moody, you
There's
can't.
no decisions. You just it
Right.
just weakens everything in your body. You just don't feel right. You know.
Yeah, and you're not motivated.
Mhm,
You're either, ground to a halt and you're
mhm.
like, a couch potato surfing Netflix or TV or Instagram, or you're like a hamster on a wheel and you're go, 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 and
Right.
people, right? It's like there's no right or wrong. It's just that that's the way it tends to happen. So how do you know if stress is acting like your kryptonite? How, like, do you feel like you're going to the fridge and opening the door and looking in there and you're like, What did I come here for?" You ever
Yeah.
had that? Like,
Right. Sure. 100%. And you know
or
what? There's many different rabbit holes, and we'll talk about them on future, mini casts like this. I mean, there's many different rabbit holes that you can go
yeah,
through.
absolutely.
But
And
Dr. Irene, there's a silver lining, right?
there is,
And we're not going
because,
to talk about the silver lining today
well,
because
I'm
we're
going to give
almost
a
done
little
here,
tease, just one
but
little,
just a little something something for the
just a
people
little
out there,
tease,
you know.
because you can tell
As
that
I
I'm.
was listening to Van Halen earlier today, David Lee Roth said, give the people, a little bass guitar and little drums. And so, everybody went wild. So we're going to give you a little bass guitar, a little drums,
All
and
right.
then, well, you don't have to do that, Dr. Irene.
Well, you said drums. I was giving you the drums,
Thank you very much. So then,
right?
Eddie Van Halen comes in. He's another one who I passed, and he starts playing. But Dr.
Yeah.
Irene, give us a little bass guitar and some drums for the
So
people.
so I already gave you the drums. And the bass guitar is to say that stress may be your kryptonite now. And I got news for you. It can be your superpower.
As long as you're dealing with it, right? So that's what we're going to
Right.
discuss on Friday.
Right.
Okay,
We're
we're going to
gonna
do an
we're
early
gonna
morning
discuss
breakfast one, and we're going
breakfast, coffee, tea.
little coffee, Ganoderma mushroom coffee, right? And we'll do that, and then we'll do a little, little tea,
Mhm.
and we'll look at what you're eating for breakfast and so forth, and we'll make some recommendations there also.
We'll
So it's all
talk
good.
about how to make stress your superpower.
Now, let's make stress your superpower. So
Because you really don't want me to do drum rolls again. I suck at them.
no, we don't want you to do drum rolls again, but that's okay. We'll figure that out. So, Dr. Irene, Friday we'll put up a little post,
Friday.
all right, and let you know you can join us in the conversation. And if you're listening to this afterwards, if you have any topics or if you have any questions, put it in the chat area, and we'll get back to you. Looking forward to Friday, Dr. Irene. Awesome.
Sounds
Awesome.
great.
All right. So, everybody, have a great day. And Friday, we're going to make stress your superpower. Everybody, take care. Dr. Irene, take care.
You too, Dr. Dan.